The Buccaneers get blown out in SoFi, but that is the least of their worries. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this live post-game reaction episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho, at @JYarcho_Bucs, credential member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, here with you 5 days a week, along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. This episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Biggest takeaways and where do the Bucs go from here? That's all coming up in a little bit. Usually we start these off with the biggest moment. There really was no biggest moment in this game. There really wasn't anything that turned the tide. The Bucs were outplayed, outcoached, outmatched from the jump. You had Baker miss a wide open Emeka Egbuka on the opening drive because he threw the ball a little too late, allowed the defense to close in, and instead of it being a touchdown, it was a pass breakup. You had Cade Otton bobble a ball, and it got intercepted and returned for a touchdown. And before I see people talking about it in the chat, yes, that was the right call. I know Otton's knee was down, but he never controlled the ball before it was a joint possession. The ball was ripped away. It was returned. That was the right call. I have no complaints about that whatsoever. Otton has to bring that in. That's on him. He bobbled that ball 3 times and allowed a defender to close in and steal it away from him. That's on Cade. The Bucs, they were just never really in this game. The big story here is Baker Mayfield. He was visibly hurt in the first half. He went into the medical tent. He came back out. He was gutting through it, as Baker Mayfield always does. And then at the end of the first half, because for some reason the Rams were calling timeouts, there was 5 seconds left. He tries a Hail Mary that a healthy Baker Mayfield probably gets it pretty close to the end zone. Instead, it was well below the distance that a healthy Baker can reach, and he immediately went down and grabbed that left shoulder. From then on, he was out of the game, and he was wearing a sling on the sideline. So what do? You hope the Baker is okay, and the sling was precautionary, and this isn't going to be a long-term thing. It was reported after the game he suffered a left shoulder sprain. He's going to get an MRI on Monday to find out the extent of the injury and then a potential timetable. If he misses next week, I think you're okay. Against Arizona, I really do. I think you're going to be all right. I told this to a few people, but do not judge Teddy Bridgewater on this game alone. Again, I don't know why McVay never called off the dogs. I mean, Jared Verse got a sack on 4th and 3 in the fourth quarter with the Rams up by 27 points. They are the best team in the NFL. Teddy went into a no-win situation. You were already trailing by multiple scores, and McVay was still teeing off. Against the Cardinals, though, if he plays again the following week against the Saints, you're going to get Bucky back next week. That's the report, is that Bucky Irving will return against the Arizona Cardinals, and then you're going to have Teddy take all the first-team reps leading up to those games. I think he can do enough to win those matchups. I said it when they signed him. If Baker were to go down for 1 or 2 weeks, I trust Teddy to get wins in those situations more than I trust Kyle Trask. It seems like that's a very real possibility now. I'm not going to speculate on what the actual injury is. It looked like it happened on his 3rd down scramble on the Bucs scoring drive. Also, great touchdown catch by Tez. But unlike the Evans situation, this one is not very clear to me. It could, be just a sprain, could be, worse than that, could be an aggravation of the injury that caused him to have surgery before the Browns traded him away after that 2021 season. I'm sure we'll have more clarity after the MRI. Hopefully that comes on Monday and we're not waiting until Wednesday's practice. But this really just continues to be one of the most disappointing seasons in recent memory. And the season isn't over. I still think this team wins the NFC South if Baker returns sooner than later, but I'm just not sure that they get very far. We've talked a lot about all the offensive pieces that they'll get back in December and into January, but I don't know if that's going to be enough right now. The defense is broken. And no, I'm not calling for Todd Bowles' head or calling for him to be fired like a lot of people are. I'm sure there are people in the chat already saying that Todd Bowles should be fired. I had more than a few insiders text me that he should be fired before the flight home from Los Angeles. But this defense is broken, and it may be beyond repair. And that's what's really frustrating considering the talent that a lot of these players have. It's just that the scheme isn't working right now. The coverage is a discombobulated mess. There is no pass rush. Vita Vea is double teamed on every single snap because no one else is stepping up to create plays. Levante David looks slow and unable to cover anyone. Servassier Dennis is not the guy. Zion McCollum got absolutely roasted like he's a Thanksgiving turkey all night long. But you look at players like Elijah Cansey, who could return before the playoffs. You look at Yaya Diaby, Tyke Smith, Jacob Parrish, Jamel Dean, Antoine Winfield, Elijah Roberts. There's talent there. I just don't understand the utilization at this stage of the game. I don't know if I have any answers. I'm not sure what else that they can do at this point. And look, whether or not Bowles stays the head coach in 2026, that's up for debate. But I can tell you this. He is going to be the coach through the rest of 2025, period. Like, end of discussion. The defense could give up 30 points a game the rest of this year, and Todd Bowles is not going to be fired during the season. I've said it in the past. When the Fire Todd crew came out with their torches and pitchforks, that's not how the Bucs operate. I don't care if you think that they should change it up just because they haven't done it in the past. They should do it now. They do not fire coaches in the season. I still don't think he gets fired at all, but we'll see. It's just not going to be in season. So stop asking for it. It's not going to happen. Stop screaming about it. It's not going to happen. Even if it did, who's going to take over for him? Are you going to give the reins to Josh Grizzard? There's plenty of other people, probably the same people, screaming to fire Grizzard. He's still trying to figure out how to run the offense without half of his players out there and with an offensive line that changes every other day. It's not going to help. It's not going to change anything. Not right now, not at this point in the season. All it's going to do, in all likelihood, is make the team worse. So stop screaming that he needs to be fired right now in November, because it's not going to happen until after the season, if at all. That's just the reality of the situation. Like it or not, that is the reality of the situation. And I have not seen anything of Todd Bowles, post-game press conference, and I'm sure it's the same message. We need to play better. We need to coach better. We weren't prepared. We were out-coached. Whatever it is, it's always the same message. But just because he's giving the same message to the media, to the fans, doesn't mean that it's the same message over and over to these players. I can tell you with 100% certainty and confidence that these players still love Todd Bowles being their head coach. They still go out there and play hard for him. But right now, their version of playing hard has not equaled playing well. This was going to be a tough game. We knew it was going to be a tough game. I picked the Rams to win this one. I just thought it was going to be a heck of a lot closer. But, firing Todd Bowles after this game doesn't do anything but make the team worse. Maybe that's what some people are rooting for. I'll talk more about that in a little bit, but it doesn't help. It does not help the situation. Going to jump into the chat real quick. We got Neck Rolios. Only dysfunctional franchises fire guys mid-season unless your head coach is Urban Meyer. And look, Todd Bowles, for all his faults and for all the struggles that this team has had this year, he's still the only coach to win 3 consecutive division titles. And he did it through a salary cap crunch when they had to save money instead of spend money after the Brady era. He has done it with these numerous losing streaks in the middle of the season. This one, we're at 3 in a row, 4 out of the last 5. The 2 years before that, each of them 4-game losing streaks. And this team bounces back and plays hard for him. And they've made the playoffs. So again, firing him mid-season does not help. It does not fix the problems. The problems are now fundamental. And it's going to be on Todd Bowles and the rest of that coaching staff to figure out how to get that changed before it's too late. But it may be too late if Baker is going to be out for the next 4 to 6 weeks, because at that point, the season is over. And you have to find a way to try to win these games against very beatable opponents with Teddy Bridgewater at the helm and with a defense that's been in absolute shambles. All right. We are going to talk about my biggest takeaways from this game. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere that Prize Picks operates. The new Stacks feature is an absolute game changer. For example, you can now pick more on a player like Steph Curry's points, threes, and assists, all in the same lineup. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Martin in the chat, greetings from Uruguay. Thank you for joining, Martin. Appreciate you being here. I have no idea what time it is in Uruguay right now, but I know here it's after midnight, and we are all here commiserating together about the Bucs' absolute shellacking at the hands of the Los Angeles Rams. My biggest takeaways in this one, I have 2 main takeaways here. And I'm going to start with, I was seeing all of the complaints and the naysayers on social media over the last couple of weeks saying, the Bucs are a team that are going to make the playoffs. They're not a playoff team. They're going to be one and done again. Number one, we don't know that. We don't know that they're going to be one and done again. Number 2, if you're one of the people that is saying that, you're probably right. The injuries have taken their toll for sure, but I cannot remember a defense dropping off the way that this one has in this fashion, in a long, long time. I think the closest would be back in 2008 when they lost 4 straight games to end the year and they missed the playoffs following the announcement that Monty Kiffin was leaving after the season to join his son Lane at USC. That implosion led to the firing of John Gruden, the hiring of Raheem Morris, and then a decade plus of last place Buccaneers football in Tampa. The way this defense is playing, they have little to no shot at winning a playoff game, not with the NFC becoming the powerhouse conference. It's all cyclical, right? The AFC has been the stronger of the 2 conferences for the better part of the last, 7 or 8 years. Now it's shifted to the NFC. If the playoffs started tomorrow, the Bucs would host Seattle on that Monday night wildcard game. And I don't think they have any chance at all at beating that team a second time. Not with the way that JSN is playing, not with the way that their defense is structured. The shootout earlier this year was an absolute blast. We all had fun watching that game. But the Bucs were lucky to escape with a win. There is no shot that they could win that game right now the way that things stand. Now, if the Panthers beat the 49ers Monday night, the Bucs are in second place in the division, and they are theoretically out of the playoff race. Like we've talked about, the Bucs have been here before. They have a favorable schedule the rest of the way, including 2 games with Carolina, but those are now must-wins. They can't really afford to lose either of those games on top of still needing to beat the Saints and the Falcons again to go 6-0 in the division. The Bucs, and I was talking to one of the insiders about this, the Bucs can honestly afford to lose one more game and still not be in full panic mode. It just absolutely cannot be to the Carolina Panthers, and you don't want it to be against a divisional opponent. If they drop one to the Falcons on Thursday night, okay, that stings, but you're still 5-1 in the division. You would still have 2 games over the Panthers in that hypothetical situation, so it's not the end of the world. But, you know, if they don't make the playoffs, you know, or if they do make the playoffs, I'm sorry, if they do make the playoffs, a lot of you are going to be asking yourself, why? Why make the playoffs if you know you're going to be one and done and you're going to cost yourself 4 or 5 spots in the NFL draft? Well, first off, it's because you get paid to win. The players get paid to win. The coaches get paid to win. The GMs get paid to win. And we also don't know with 100% certainty that they will be one and done. Stranger things have certainly happened, and maybe if the offense is firing on all cylinders with all of their pieces, it starts to give new life to the defense. That's why you play the game. Yeah, I think right now it's unlikely that they win a playoff game, but it's not a foregone conclusion. That's why games are played on the field and not on paper. This team is in dire straits right now. I see Josh in the chat. Lane would fix this. No, he absolutely would not. Lane Kiffin is not a good football coach. I don't know how he's going to end up getting offered all this money by LSU. No, Lane Kiffin does not fix this problem at all. That is the last name I would want to see associated with a Buccaneers head coaching job. But this Bucs team is in dire straits right now. Todd Bowles has got to find an answer on defense, or not only is the team in trouble, but he honestly will be too. Again, I don't think he's getting fired, but they still have 6 more games to play. A lot can happen over the course of the next 6 weeks. What good is winning the division every year if that's as far as it goes? And that's a question that Jason Light and the owners are going to have to answer. I like Todd. I'm not sure that firing him is the answer. I said it last week. Be careful what you wish for. It doesn't usually turn out the way that you hope that it does. Titans fans thought firing Mike Vrabel was the answer. Falcons fans thought firing Dan Quinn was the answer. Take either New York team, they always think that firing their coach is the answer. And I'll bet you anything Jets fans would kill to have Todd Bowles back as their head coach. Sometimes, yes, it is absolutely the right decision. But usually you wind up in a cycle where you fire a coach, changes don't happen, or at least the positive ones don't happen, not fast enough to appease those that are calling the shots. So then you fire another one and you hire another one, and then another, and then another. If the Bucs job opened up, it would be the most attractive job opening of the 2026 or the 2025 to 2026 offseason. It might be one of the most attractive job openings in the last handful of years because of the amount of talent on the team. But again, I'm not sure that that is the actual solution. The actual solution is they stop doing the same stupid stuff over and over and over again and find a different avenue to try to operate, both offensively and defensively. And again, I know that Grizz is handcuffed. I know that he's not playing with a full deck. Todd Bowles isn't either. He wasn't in this Rams game. You had no Jamel Dean. You had no Benjamin Morrison. You haven't had Kalijah Cansey most of the year. But Todd Bowles showed last year that without a lot of key pieces, he could still find ways to get the job done. The defense in some aspects is playing better this year than it did last year. In other aspects, it's playing worse. So I don't know what the exact answer is, but it's going to be on the coaching staff to figure this out. We keep doing this and it's not working. What can we do? What can we change to get this defense back on track? Because it's as shorthanded as the offense is. This game wasn't on them. I know they only scored 7 points, but this game isn't on them. The Buffalo game isn't on them. The New England game, it was kind of a 50-50 split. The offense left a lot of meat on the bone, but the defense got gashed. My other takeaway is this. In the grand scheme of things, I'm not really sure that this matters much, but I want to bring it up anyway. I was talking to some of the insiders about it. I'm not sure that Emeka Egbuka is going to be in a position to win Offensive Rookie of the Year anymore. He had just 32 yards. They were all on one catch against the Rams. Now, he finished with 3 receptions, but the first 2 went for a total of 0 yards. He got a big catch and run at the end of the game from Teddy Bridgewater, but Teteroa McMillan has been balling out lately and is closing in on the top 5 in the NFL in receiving yards. He still gets to play Monday night. That's going to put even more distance between him and Egbuka. And Egbuka is leading in other categories, but if the Panthers win the NFC South, let's say that this continues to go down, this continues to spiral out of control, and the Bucs miss the playoffs. If those differences in their stats are negligible, Tet has more receiving yards, Egbuka has more receptions and touchdowns, Egbuka has a higher yards per catch average, but Tet has more, a higher average over the last 6 weeks or whatever. If those differences are negligible, who do you think the award goes to? Is it going to go to the one that started off hot, or is it going to go to the one that was strong down the stretch and helped his team win the division for the first time in a decade? It's going to go to the latter. Egbuka has been under 60 yards in 5 of the last 6 games. That's not going to cut it. I thought Godwin being back in this one would help, but the passing game was so abysmal that it ultimately didn't matter. Like I said, it's not the most important thing in the world, but it is something that we've talked about a lot, and it's disappointing considering the way that he started the year and considering the way that he's had to carry the load on offense without all these other guys around him. He deserves better at this point in time. I'm going to jump into the chat real quick. We have Alexander says, everyone has injuries. I'm tired of that excuse. Again, someone explain to me the difference between an excuse and a reason. Are the Bucs struggling this badly if Kalijah Cansey is on the field, if Mike Godwin and Jalen McMillan are on the field, if Bucky Irving is on the field, if Cody Mauch is on the field? Are the Bucs struggling this much? It's not the sole reason for their struggles, but it is certainly a very, very large piece of the puzzle. Yes, every team does have injuries. You would be hard-pressed to find any that has them to the level that the Bucs do. I mean, that's just the simple fact of the matter. Let's see. We have neck roll about my saying that the Bucs would be the most attractive job opening. He says more attractive than the Giants. Absolutely more attractive than the Giants. The Bucs, top to bottom, are a more talented football team than the Giants. The Giants have the fun new, the fun new quarterback in Jackson Dart. You have the crazy guy in Cam Scatterbo. You have some talent at receiver. You have an incredible pass rush on defense. I wish the Bucs had the level of pass rushers that the Giants do, but top to bottom, overall, the talent is better for Tampa. They're in a better situation. They are in more of a win now mode. The Giants is still a rebuild type of situation. So yes, I do think that the Bucs would be a more attractive opening. We are going to get into where the Bucs go from here. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. If you want to check out the Buccaneers at home this season, you can get tickets for that Cardinals game this coming Sunday when they induct Simeon Rice into the Ring of Honor for less than $60. No worry, if you can't make that game, you can see any of their remaining home games for under $75. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Wrapping things up here on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Joshua, I see you in the chat. You can believe what you want about Lane Kiffin. I will never, ever, ever consider him a good head coaching prospect for the NFL. He has failed at numerous stops. He's having a good year at Ole Miss. He's going to end up at LSU. He's probably going to fail there. I do not see him transitioning. So that's kind of the end of it. I won't bring him up anymore unless the Buccaneers give me a reason to. People said the same thing about Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly got his second crack at the NFL. He got fired today because of how bad the Raiders offense is. Some guys are made to be college coaches. Some guys can coach at the college level and the NFL level. Some guys are just NFL coaches. That's how it is. It's the same way as some people are better coordinators than they are head coaches. I've said my piece on it. I'm not going to bring his name up again. All right. So where do the Buccaneers go from here? Well, it's pretty simple, and I think it's pretty obvious. Somebody has to be the guy to give this team a wake-up call. They need their come-to-Jesus moment. Levante is not the rah-rah guy. He is the quiet leader, very much in the same mold as Derek Brooks. Baker is hurt, but he's always the voice. He's always the guy. No matter what position you play, no matter what side of the field you're on, Baker is always the guy who's trying to get everybody pumped up. So that voice isn't going to work in this situation. Someone is going to have to step up in that locker room and in that building and say, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. We got to fix it. We need to step up. We need to stop playing like we've never been on a football field before. It's unacceptable. We are better than this, but this guy and this guy and this guy are not pulling their weight. This call and this call and this call are hurting us. We need to do this in that situation. We need to do that in this situation. We're beating ourselves. We are hurting ourselves. And you either get your butt where you're supposed to be and you make a play, or keep your butt on the sideline so someone else can come in and actually help. This team lacks heart. Right now, this team lacks heart. The defense, top to bottom, looks defeated. They do not look like they believe in themselves or their teammates, and you aren't going to win another game when that happens. Again, no, that doesn't mean I think Bowles has lost the locker room. What it means is that these players need something to remind them of the team that they were a month ago. They need something to remind them what they are actually capable of, that they shouldn't doubt themselves, they don't need to doubt themselves, and that they're talented enough to go up against the best teams in the conference and in the league. They don't have that right now. There is no one on that field that is showing that they can assert their dominance and win their matchup. Even Tristan Wirfs was getting knocked to the ground by Jared Verse in this game. This was probably the second worst game I've ever seen Tristan Wirfs play, and the first one was earlier this year. There are currently only a handful of bright spots on this team. Tyke Smith, Emeka Egbuka, Sean Tucker, Elijah Roberts. I think for a fifth-round pick that wasn't expected to see the field very much, he stepped up in a big way. He's been a bright spot. You can throw Tez Johnson in there too. Other than that, every player, and I mean every single one, should be called out and have to take a long look in the mirror to figure out what they're doing wrong, what they can do better, and what they have to do to make sure that they do not continue down this path. We go through this every freaking year, and it's annoying. We go through this losing streak every year, but they always bounce back. They always rally. They always find ways to win. I don't know if this team can. I said earlier this year that there was something special about this team, that I believed this team could win the Super Bowl because of the things that they were doing as a team, the way that they were winning games, the way that when one side of the field was letting you down, the other side picked you up. Now, I'm not sure. I'm really not. I'm not sure. I don't think there's anything special about this team. And I'm not sure that, it's the injuries that have piled up. If it's the emotional loss of your leader and your captain and your Hall of Famer, Mike Evans, I don't know if it's the ways in which they're losing games now. I'm not sure that all of that isn't just too much for this team to overcome. I said I needed to see something against the Rams team, and I saw absolutely nothing. If Baker misses time, that's another blow to this team's mental toughness and psyche. If he misses extended time, that's a lost season that started with Super Bowl aspirations and finished with an unending downward spiral of misfortune and disappointment. That's going to do it for this episode. Please check out everything on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @JYarcho_Bucs, Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Bucs in both of those places. Starting as soon as this show is over, you have the Bucs Squad Show. You guys can continue. They're going to have a Q&A segment. So, Joshua, I know you said it in the chat, and I'm with you, man. We'll agree to disagree, but you want to get another Bucs take on Lane Kiffin. They have a Q&A segment there on the Bucs Squad Show. It's going live at 12:30, so 2 minutes from now. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube with the notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. You want to support the show, but you don't want to be an insider. It's real simple. Like this episode on YouTube. Leave a 5-star review wherever you get podcasts. It does help other Buccaneers fans find the show. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. I want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.